Hello everyone, I am Quartermon437 and today is Valentine's Day. So to celebrate, I wanted to make a special video dedicated to someone important in my life. And well, I don't really have any significant others, so this is a special Control-C video dedicated to my grandparents. We are going to be talking about not just one highway, but the entire route that I take to get to my grandparents' house, which I'm going to refer to shorthand as the Pava Corridor. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the map of the route that we are going to be following. We are going to start in central Pennsylvania, follow Interstate 99 south to its end in Bedford. We are going to travel kind of in a southeast direction as we cross Maryland, as we enter into Virginia, and then we will take the Capitol Beltway for a short distance, and then we will take Virginia Route 267 for another brief distance. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a like. If you have any feedback for me, or if you want to discuss anything that I have talked about in this video, please leave a comment down below. And if you really enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell, all of that good stuff. Now, one of these trips that I take to my grandparents' house always begins at my place in Bellefonte, so let's get started with Southbound. And any one of these trips always begins with a drive down basically all of Interstate 99, so we will start here off of exit 83, where we can see that we are also concurrent with US Route 220 and Pennsylvania 26. Northbound is signed for Howard. That's really there because of Pennsylvania 26, although you could still probably have a better control city for all three of these routes here. And then southbound we are signed for State College. So that is a good choice. On our first mileage sign, interestingly, even though we have not gone 3 miles, that sign that we saw at the beginning, it said State College was 13 miles away, but on this mileage sign it's only 10. And we also get Altoona thrown onto the bottom line at 49 miles away, so that is also a great choice for a primary. And that continues to hold up. We got another mileage sign, State College 6 miles away, Altoona 45, so on the bottom line. Here is the Shiloh Road exit, and I only wanted to point this out because this is the exit that I would always used to take to go to school, because even though I've technically been living in Bellefonte since 2009, I still went to schools in State College because I guess I was born in State College, so. And it's not like I lived in Bellefonte all the time. I lived in State College with my mom half the time. And this is also the exit where I get off to go to work. So I'm always getting off of this exit for not really fun reasons, but I figured I'd still mention it anyways because it's still important in my day-to-day life. Here is the first of many of my own pictures that I have taken on Interstate 79. This is at the junction of 322 when it goes east to Lewistown, and it becomes concurrent with southbound until we get to Port Matilda. Although thankfully it is not on this sign. We get Phillipsburg and Altoona, because 322 goes to Phillipsburg and Altoona is still our control city here. Here's a look at Beaver Stadium as we're about to merge in with 322. And this is a look off of the big bridge that 99 and 220 go over just before 322 merges in. Here's another look at the amazing mileage sign that I pointed out in my US 322 westbound video. If you want to go see that, then I'll have a card up in the top right corner so you can go check it out. And then we get another mileage sign after leaving the State College area. Phillipsburg 17 and Altoona 35. I also showed this in my other video I did about Interstate 99, which was like the supplementary version of Control City Freaks video and the Dirtpogs US 220 video. Again, that will be up in the corner if you want to go watch it. We start to get some really, really beautiful scenery on Interstate 99 as we leave the State College area. US 322 westbound splits off to go to Phillipsburg as we still get the sign for Port Matilda and Altoona. Again, of course, as everyone has said, every time they see the sign, you don't need that Port Matilda there because we are in Port Matilda right now. And if you look at the road, you will see a sign telling you that Port Matilda is coming up and the exit to get there is very shortly after this exit. But then we got a mileage sign for Tyrone on the top line and Altoona on the bottom line. So, good job there. And here is some more of the really, really beautiful scenery you can see off of Interstate 99. This is a look at Tyrone from Interstate 99. And does this look like the place that you should be signing as a bottom line like 15 miles after leaving Altoona? I didn't think so. As we get closer to Altoona, we just get a mileage sign with Altoona being 6 miles away. I don't know why they don't throw Bedford or Cumberland or something on there. Although then again, maybe it's better that Bedford isn't on that sign. Here we come to the 17th Street exit. This is our first of 3 exits for Altoona. And as we leave the Altoona area, we get this mileage sign. Bedford is on the top line, 30 miles away. And we get Cumberland, 55 miles away on the bottom line. So that is very good. Although, as we saw in my video about Interstate 99, that will soon go away. Yep. Cessna 3, Bedford 8. We only get Cessna because of Pennsylvania 56. You know, you could put Johnstown on the bottom line if you want to sign as a place for 56 so badly, or just keep going Cumberland for 220. Nope. Be provincial. When we get to Bedford, there are 3 choices for how to proceed. If you want to waste like $5, $6 or something like that, you can get on the Turnpike and head east to Breezewood and then continue to follow 70 from there. You can take US 30 to Breezewood and skip having to pay tolls, or you can do what we're going to do in this video and my personal favorite, take Southbound US 220 all the way to Interstate 68 and take Interstate 68 to Hancock. Although, personally, I would recommend, if you're like really hungry or need gas or something, just take 30, because there's like all sorts of services along the way from Bedford to Breezewood. But yeah, you can take the turnpike, but I would actually not really recommend it. Again, because of the toll, and I mean, also the turnpike isn't exactly the safest road. But in any case, here is our junction for Interstate 30. It gets signed west for Greensburg. That's a good choice. And Everett, which is really only there because of meeting Pennsylvania 26. But then at the eastbound ramp, it also gets signed for Breezewood. I don't know why you have Breezewood on there. You could have something else as a longer distance control city, and certainly not have Everett being on there. After we leave the Bedford area, we merge into a 2-lane road on US 220, and we can see that this is going to happen pretty much all the way until we get to Cumberland. This 2-lane road continues for 27 miles. Here is some of the scenery that we can see along our way to Cumberland. Looks pretty beautiful, just south of Bedford. Welcome to Maryland. And just a few miles into Maryland, we meet with Interstate 68. It is signed westbound for Cumberland, and 220 will be joining Interstate 68 for a brief concurrency, signed for Cumberland, which makes sense, I suppose, because technically we are still a few miles west of downtown. And then we get signed for Hancock because we will be turning onto Interstate 68 eastbound at this point. Why Hancock? Nobody is going to Hancock just to make a turn onto Interstate 70 westbound to go back to Breezewood and points west in Pennsylvania. All of the traffic is going to be going eastbound to Baltimore and Washington. So put one of those on the sign. Ugh. Maryland, ugh. Not much better than Pennsylvania, for sure, with their control city signs. Here is where we have our choice to go east or west to Hancock. And it is also pretty beautiful at this intersection right here. Once we get onto Interstate 68 going eastbound, this is a pretty good mileage sign. We got Hancock as a top line, Hagerstown being our secondary, and Baltimore as the bottom line. Because, yeah, 68 should be signed for Baltimore or Washington, because it'll take you to Interstate 70, which can then take you to Baltimore, or, well, I'll talk about the or a bit later. Here we get some more really beautiful scenery on Interstate 68 going eastbound as we head towards Hancock and join up with Interstate 70. Once again, I mentioned this in my US 219 Southbound video. Again, link in the corner. But I love this road. However, though, the quality of our mileage signs has dropped off. On this one, we get Interstate 70 Junction as our top line, Hancock only 1 mile after that on the second line, and our bottom line is now Hagerstown. The only reason you should be signing Hancock at all is because that is the junction of Interstate 68 and 70. Just have the 70 junction be on the top line, and then put Hagerstown on the second line, and put Baltimore or Washington on the bottom line like you had it before. So stupid. Oh my goodness gracious. Here we're going through the Sidling Hill rock cutting, so this is really cool. And now we end Interstate 68 going eastbound as we get these terrible, terrible overhead signs for westbound Interstate 70 going to Breezewood as opposed to Pittsburgh. And then Interstate 70 east for Hagerstown as opposed to Baltimore or Washington. Although 522 gets the right choices, I would say. The first mileage sign we see on Interstate 70 going eastbound is a little better than the one we just saw on Interstate 68. We get our next exit, Hagerstown on the second line, and Frederick 45 miles away, so Frederick is a pretty big city in Maryland. It's the split of Interstate 70 and 270. Although I still think you could probably put that as a secondary and maybe just have Hagerstown be the primary and then, Baltimore or Washington on the bottom line. In Hagerstown, we meet Interstate 81, and 81 gets good control cities, but we get Frederick. Nope, should not be Frederick. Should be, well, I've mentioned it a few times already. And on our first mileage sign, we see after meeting Interstate 81, we get Frederick on the top line. And then we get both Washington and Baltimore on this sign, so that is pretty awesome. And then we get this mileage sign with only Washington on the bottom line, but that's good because you should be signing Washington on Interstate 70 because, the capital's a pretty major city that 70 doesn't go to, but you're angling towards when you get to Interstate 270. And then we get Frederick as a secondary and Myersville on the top line 8 miles away. We're coming up to the Maryland Welcome Center on Interstate 70 eastbound, and this was always pretty crazy to me. This Welcome Center is almost 40 miles into Interstate 70, which is like half of the distance almost that Interstate 70 eastbound goes through Maryland. So I think it's crazy that it's all the way out here and not somewhere closer. I had to show this exit, good old exit 42 for Myersville, because my dad and we've stopped off at this exit a good number of times when we were coming back from either trips to my grandparents' house or vacations down in South Carolina, and we've gotten off here when we were hungry because there's a Burger King and a McDonald's. I think there's a couple other places too. We're coming up on a very interesting interchange because here we are meeting Interstate 40, but we have no access to westbound, and unlike many times west of here, we don't become concurrent or lose concurrency with US 40 as it goes into the downtown of Frederick, and we just kind of skirt around the bottom. I also had to show this interchange as well. We're meeting US Route 15 and 340, which are assigned for Charlestown, and Northbound is assigned for Gettysburg. This is also a route that you can technically take to get to my grandparents' house, although it's slightly more convoluted, and obviously it's not as fast. But if there's like construction ahead on 270 or something, then I'll take this route. Here is our split with Interstate 270, and we will be following Interstate 270 South, signed for Washington, so that's good. And now 70 eastbound finally gets Baltimore, so it's about time, Maryland. You should have done that the whole way through, especially because You know, in Breezewood, Pennsylvania was signing both of the big cities. Anyway, I just wanted to show this. Here's an overhead look at Frederick and the freeways that go through town. After we get onto Interstate 270 bound for Washington, we get this mileage sign, Rockville on our second line, 22 miles away, and Washington on the bottom line, 41 miles away. So I like that. Rockville, good secondary. This is just south, or I guess it's kind of more like east. Interstate 270 kind of goes like in a southeast direction to get to the DC area. Either way, we get this mileage sign, and everything has a 1/2 after the big number. Like, the next junction is 2.5 miles away. Rockville is 9.5 miles away. And we get Washington 23.5 miles away. I'm very curious, where are they pulling 23.5 from? Specifically, to what point in DC is 23.5 miles away from here? Why so specific? That's really weird. Here we're meeting Interstate 370, and it is to the toll route of Maryland 200. And we can also see that 270 is going to split into express and local lanes, as we also have an HOV lane coming up. Here is the end of Interstate 270 south, and we get quite a lot of information here. Although the sign that's important to us is the last one on the far right. Interstate 270 spur to Interstate 495 south, Washington and Northern Virginia. Here is our last exit before we meet Interstate 495, the Capital Beltway. And this looks pretty cool. We have like a ramp right in the middle of the freeway, right in the median there. That's pretty cool. Here we're passing under the outer loop of the Capital Beltway as it's going to merge in with us. And here is the merge point as we get pretty typical DC traffic, although the other side actually looks pretty good. We are crossing over the Potomac River on the American Legion Memorial Bridge, and this was always a landmark that stood out to me when I was a kid because of just how big this bridge is. And we can see again, there are a lot of cars on it. Here's a view looking out over the Potomac River, and interestingly, this image is from 2009, but yet it has questionably good quality. I don't know why a lot of 2009 Google Street View imagery looks like crap, but then we get this good one. I've mentioned that before on a previous occasion, but it still bugs the heck out of me. Welcome to Virginia, although I have to question this blue sign underneath the welcome sign. Virginia open for business. So you're implying that sometimes Virginia is not open for business. Sometimes I'm not going to be welcome into Virginia. That's kind. I don't know. I don't like the vibes that sign is giving me. A few miles into Virginia on 495, we're getting more express lanes, although these are tolled express lanes, and if you don't have an easy pass, you will not be permitted onto the lanes. And also, there is an HOV 3. If you have more than 3 people in your car, you don't have to pay a toll, although I think that's pretty rare that you have a situation like that. But anyway, here is our last major highway of the video. It is Virginia 267, which we will be getting onto sign for Reston and Herndon. Also the Dulles Airport, which I guess based off of what this sign is saying, there actually is no toll if you are going to the airport. Maybe it's just not tolled at the airport itself. I don't know. And off of Virginia 267, we will be taking the Hunter Mill Road exit. That is the exit that, well, there's a few exits that you can take to get to my grandparents' house from 267, but this is the first one after getting on 267 coming from the southbound direction. We go through our toll booth, and then we will be making a left turn at that stoplight up there. And the rest of the trip to my grandparents' house involves just getting on local streets and stuff, which starts by making a right at this stoplight, but I will not show any more intersections because, well, I don't want to dox my grandparents. But anyway, let's turn around and start talking about the northbound Pava corridor. We will start here at this intersection of South Lakes Drive and Sunrise Valley Drive, and technically either turn will lead you towards Virginia 267, although I'm going to show you guys the Wheelie Avenue interchange this time because I think it looks cooler. And at the interchange, Virginia 267 is signed for Dulles Airport and Washington, so those are good controls. We're meeting the Capitol Beltway again, and it is signed north for Baltimore and south for Richmond. Those are Interstate 95's controls, but I think they are good ones. And we will be taking exit 18B to get on northbound 495 for Baltimore as we get off of Virginia 267. Here is a look at the ramp that we take to get on the Beltway. I think it looks pretty cool. Pretty long ramp. And here is an overhead view of our interchange. It is pretty big, although, of course, nothing will ever compare to the Springfield interchange, I think, for massive interchanges. Although I think this one still looks pretty cool nonetheless. After we get onto the Beltway, we get this laundry list of exits, or, well, I guess points of interest, really, because we have Maryland State Line as an entry on this list. So that's interesting. Here we're going over the American Legion Bridge again, and here is a look down the other way of the Potomac River. There is no Welcome to Maryland sign on this direction. There used to be, but I guess something happened to it. I don't know what exactly. That's pretty weird. But either way, yes, this is where we enter Maryland, and we get this sign telling us that 270 is 4 miles away, and we will be meeting with 95 in 15 miles, although we will not go to 95 because we're going to be taking 270. And here is where the Capitol Beltway kind of exits itself as we get onto Interstate 270. Note that the 270 and 495 are printed on new, like, green small signs. The old versions of this sign, the shields were very faded out, and it's about time that they replaced those. My god, they were definitely showing their age. Anyway, here we're meeting Interstate 370 again. Of course, once again, it is to Maryland Route 200, which is tolled. And I think this interchange is also pretty cool. Here's a view from overhead of that. And on Interstate 370, we get sign north for Frederick, which Yeah, that's a good control for 270, although if we're to do the thing that we saw back in Virginia where we're going to assign 70s controls, you should probably just go with Pittsburgh there, I think. We are starting to leave the craziness of the DC metro area, and we get this mileage sign. Our next exit is in 3.5 miles, and Frederick is only 13 miles away. This is, I believe, after exit 18. And Frederick continues to hold up as a bottom line for pretty much the rest of the route. Although I think on this mileage sign, where it's only 6 miles away, you could probably just put it as a top line. And then have, I don't know, something on 70 as a control. Like a bottom line, or, you know, what I mentioned earlier, Pittsburgh. Of course, we couldn't go without seeing some of these signs for the most hyped interstate ever. On Interstate 270, a few miles before we actually reach Frederick, we get this sign, Alt Route West, 68 National Freeway, 58 miles ahead via I-70. I guess they really want you to take that so you stay in Maryland and don't go on the turnpike. Although, to be honest, I don't blame them. We are at the end of Interstate 270, and if we continue straight, we will be on US 15 North, signed for Frederick and Gettysburg. I feel like you don't really need Frederick on that sign because we're kind of already in Frederick, although Gettysburg works just fine as a control. And now we are going to be on Interstate 70, Hagerstown and Baltimore, although there's probably not a whole lot of traffic going back to Baltimore here, taking eastbound 70. Our first mileage sign we see on Interstate 70, we get Hagerstown, Hancock, and Breezewood. I don't like that Breezewood being on the bottom line. Again, it should probably just be Pittsburgh, and also, I don't know if I agree with Hancock being a secondary, although at least they don't list the junction with Interstate 68 as being a bottom line or something. And this next mileage sign we see, once we get a little closer to Hagerstown, I don't know if I agree with this either. I believe this is just past exit 42, but I don't agree with Hancock being a bottom line either. It's not much better than Breezewood for sure. And we meet Interstate 81 once again with its pretty good control cities, and we're just on 70 West Hancock. No, should not be Hancock. And after that interchange, we get these reassurance shields. West 72, Interstate 68. The red is looking pretty faded there. And just down the road, we get another pretty bad mileage sign with Hancock and 68 Junction listed. Again, you can probably just take 68 Junction and put it on the second line and put... well, actually, I'll talk about it in a minute here. We're getting a reminder that the next exit, exit 18, is for Maryland Route 68 and not Interstate 68 because, you know, people apparently have a hard time distinguishing between the red, white, and blue shields and the white sign symbol. How do you people get this stuff confused? I don't understand. Anyway, for Interstate 68, we want to keep going west on 70. And then we get this mileage sign, which has Hancock as a secondary and Cumberland as a bottom line. So we get 68's control on the bottom line here, and that's at least better than putting Breezewood on the bottom line, although I think I'd still rather see Cumberland on the second line and Pittsburgh being the control for I-70 on the bottom line. Although this is at least a step up from the other ones we've seen so far. And then we get another mileage sign. This time, Hancock is on the top line. We get Breezewood as a secondary. And Cumberland is on the bottom line at 48 miles away. So, again, I mean, do we really need Breezewood on there? Although, at least it's not on the bottom line. We get to our junction with Interstate 68 and we split off, also concurrent with US 40, and we get signed for Cumberland, which, yeah, that's fine. You know, Maryland did all that hyping up of Interstate 68. Why would they sign Morgantown? And 70 gets signed west for Breezewood, again, as opposed to Pittsburgh. But let's make our left turn to get on 68 now. And we start off with a pretty good mileage sign. We got Flintstone 24, Cumberland is our secondary at 36, and we got Morgantown on the bottom line, and that holds up all the way through Maryland, so that's pretty good by Maryland. As we get on to 68 westbound, I didn't mention in the eastbound part, but we get a welcome center for Maryland right here at the Sidling Hill cut, and that is a great place for a welcome center because, like, if you were to look out your window to the right here, you would get a beautiful view, and even like west of here, again, it's pretty beautiful scenery. Here's a look inside the cut once again. At this point on Interstate 68, this mountain has always stuck out to me because I distinctly remember a few times my dad and we've driven down this mountain and we've gone almost 90 miles an hour and the traffic was flowing that fast. It was insane. So, yeah. Pretty cool part of 68. We are still getting Morgantown on the bottom line here as we are now only 12 miles away from Cumberland. Although I'm not really sure that I agree with however you pronounce that. I'm not going to try this time. That is 44 miles away. I think you could probably just go with Frostburg for a secondary. I think that would be better because that is at least like a real town. This secondary that we see here is not. It's just where US 40 leaves. Now we come to our exit for US 220 North, signed for Bedford. I mean, you could probably also put Altoona on the sign or just Altoona. Although I suppose 220 meets the turnpike and also it's where I-99 begins. So, could be worse, I guess. Although there isn't really anything north of 220 until we get to Bedford. As we get off the exit for northbound 220, you want to pay attention because if you take the ramp or the turn that you get straight after the exit, you will instead end up on Maryland 144. So if you're planning to take US 220, just stay straight and then make the left turn here. And at this interchange, once again, we see 68 eastbound sign for Hancock. Again, should just be Baltimore or Washington. After we have gotten onto US 220 northbound, we get this mileage sign that has Bedford on the top line and 99 on the bottom line. I really think you should probably just put like Altoona on the bottom line here, or maybe just make I-99 Junction the top line. I don't know, this is really weird. We come back into Pennsylvania and we get a smaller version of the interstate welcome sign, and I'm just going to move on to our junction with US 30 once again, signed for Greensburg westbound, good control city there, and Everett. You could probably have something else, although I'll leave it to Xavier to tell you what that should be. His US 30 video will be up in the corner. And we come to our exit for the turnpike, although we're not actually directly meeting it, of course, because it's the whole Breezewood 2 situation, like Todd mentioned in his 99 video. I'll put that up in the corner as well. We are meeting Pennsylvania 56, signed for Johnstown and Cessna, which, again, Cessna isn't even like an actual place. I think you could just put Johnstown on there. Or I guess you could put to the turnpike again, or US 30. Although, if you wanted to go on either of those roads, you might as well have just gotten off in Bedford, but I still think you don't need Cessna there. I don't really have anything else to add until we get quite a bit further north, but I wanted to point out these signs at our interchange with US 222 because we get these signs telling us that if you want to get to the turnpike, you want to follow 99 and 20 south. But the real star of the show here is this to Interstate 80, follow north Interstate 99, US 220 left lane. That is insane. Interstate 80 is still like almost 60 miles north of here, so that is a pretty cool sign to see here. That I really like. Good job on that, that's really cool. As we're passing through Altoona, we get an attraction here, the Logan Town Center, which has a bunch of shops and restaurants and stuff right off of Interstate 99. So this is kind of a shout out to the Derp Hog. This kind of place is like right up his alley. And of course we get the horrendous northbound control city of Tyrone. And in fact, this interchange right here, this is the very last interchange before Tyrone, and we don't even get Tyrone 3 or whatever when Altoona is 11 miles away southbound. So, like, PennDOT, why can't you just put State College on it? Because that's what should be there instead. That's what you should be signing out of Altoona, but of course, PennDOT's provincialism prevails once again. And it wouldn't be a video talking about Interstate 99 without mentioning Port Matilda. Like, my God, 500 people, absolutely not control city worthy. I don't care if it's meeting 322 there or not. But at least we do have our beautiful scenery to admire on our way there. And of course, I gotta show Atherton Street once again, where they should sign this as exit 69. And like I mentioned in my other video about 99, they do put that there on signs before this, so I don't know why it's not on this sign. Really stupid. I don't really have much else to add once again on 99, so I'm just going to show you this exit, 78B, which is kind of like the primary way into town, I guess. Although, of course, you can also take exit 83 if you want to get on the other side. Although this exit is kind of special to me because when I was a kid, I used to call it the Bellefonte Loop because it's a cloverleaf here. I think the only cloverleaf on I-99. And there's also a bunch of gas stations and restaurants here. There's been a lot of development at this exit in the last 15 years or so. Here is another one of my own pictures that I took because in, I think it was like October of 2023, this sign for the Harrison Road exit at mile 80.8 got knocked over and it stayed down for a few weeks, although they did recover the sign and put it back up and they didn't replace it. So that's interesting. And now our journey is coming to an end. We reached my home exit, well, the exit that I live off of, Pennsylvania 550 for Bellefonte and Zion. And that will wrap it up. And with all that said, now we are going to move on to Corridor March 437, the way it should be for the PA corridor. Going southbound, I think that it should be from Bellefonte. It should be for Interstate 99, State College, Altoona, then Cumberland. No need for Bedford or Port Matilda, nothing like that. And then once we turn on to Interstate 68, it should be Baltimore or Washington, some combination of those two, or just sign one or the other the whole way. You don't need Hancock or Frederick or anything like that. And then that should also hold up when we get onto Interstate 70. And then when we split off of Interstate 70, when we get on to 270, we should be signed for Washington, and that's what they do. And for the Beltway, I think you could probably also just sign Washington, or maybe do Northern Virginia. I don't know. I want to focus mainly on like the primary components of the trip. And then for northbound, when we start on Virginia Route 267, Baltimore and Richmond, like they do it on the Beltway, I think that is good. And then for 270, I suppose you could put Frederick on there, although if we're going to do the Virginia thing of signing 95's controls, then maybe it should just be Pittsburgh. Although I think Frederick is not a terrible choice for 270 either, because that's where it actually goes to. And then when we get on to Interstate 70, we should be signed westbound for Pittsburgh. Hancock and Hagerstown, those should be secondaries, absolutely. Although when we get on to Interstate 68, I say it's fine to do Cumberland, because Cumberland is a kind of important town on 68's route. And of course, I think it would be a bit... I think they're entitled to doing Cumberland. I think Todd mentioned this in his 68 video. I think they're entitled to sign Cumberland after all the hype they did. And then when we get to US 220, I guess Bedford could be okay, but I'd also probably like to see Altoona thrown on there. And of course, when we get to Interstate 99, of course it should be signed for Altoona, although I would even argue for State College right off the bat. But definitely once we leave Altoona, State College should definitely be the primary. And then I'm not really going to talk about what should happen north of that. Probably Williamsport or New York City or something. I said I probably won't talk about it, I mentioned it anyway. But either way, that is going to wrap up this video about my trip from central Pennsylvania to my grandparents' house in Northern Virginia. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, please be sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below if you have any feedback for me or you want to discuss any of these routes we talked about anymore. Please be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell. And with all that said, guys, I will see you in the next one. Peace.